that the state of knowledge is not prosperous nor greatly advancing, and that a way must be opened for the human understanding entirely different from any hitherto known, and other helps provided, in order that the mind may exercise over the nature of things the authority which properly belongs to it. It seems to me that men do not rightly understand either their store or their strength, but overrate the one and underrate the other. Hence it follows that either from an extravagant estimate of the value of the arts which they possess, they seek no further, or else from too mean an estimate of their own powers, they spend their strength in small matters, and never put it fairly to the trial in that which go to the main. These are as the pillars of fate set in the path of knowledge. For let a man look carefully into all that variety of books with which the arts and sciences abound, he will find everywhere endless repetitions of the same thing, varying in the method of treatment but not new in substance, insomuch that the whole stock, numerous as it appears at first view, proves on examination to be but scanty. And for its value and utility it must plainly be avowed that the wisdom which we have derived principally from the Greeks is but like the boyhood of knowledge, and has the characteristic property of boys. It can talk, but it cannot generate, for it is fruitful of controversies but barren of works. Hello and welcome to you wherever you may be. This week I will look specially at Chapter 7 of Fragments of an Unknown Teaching and examine where Ouspensky created a new and un-Gurdjieff-like direction for the Fourth Way. And I have some long passages that deal with many subjects, including where Kesdran bodies go to live, and different rhythms of interaction between the many eyes, the false self, and the essence, and something from Anna Bukowsky. And before I start, I had a thought this morning that if you were a ballet teacher and you consider, next to this ballet teacher, you consider an ordinary man in the street, there is no real way for a ballet teacher to teach the very fine movements that that person can do to the man in the street. There has to be intermediary levels of teaching, and it steps down the very refined movements into something more manageable in steps. I thought this was quite interesting. Particularly the 4 and the 0 caught my attention. So let's have a look at Chapter 7 of Fragments of an Unknown Teaching, which is a record of Gurdjieff's teaching, but written by Ouspensky. I've taken the text of this chapter and just laid it on its side here, so that the beginning of the chapter is actually on the left side and the end of the chapter is on the right side. The entire chapter contains teachings of Gurdjieff, his ideas, apart from in 2 places where Ouspensky inserts his own teaching. There are 2 sections which are not Gurdjieff's teaching at all. They are a different teaching. I don't know why this happened. This book was published posthumously to Ouspensky dying, and is not generally noticed, but you have 2 completely different types of teaching here. In the first section, Ouspensky runs with the idea of self-remembering as a standalone practice being the core of the teaching, which it is not. Gurdjieff had previously in the chapter simply told him that when you do the exercise of observing your manifestations and splitting them into mental functions, emotional functions, and physical functions, that you need to remember yourself at the same time, because if you lose yourself into what you're doing, you cannot observe. You've just simply lost. That is the reason that Gurdjieff introduced the idea of self-remembering. That's all. A kind of simple thing. The main exercise is simply to observe your manifestations and to separate them into the functions of the three centers. For whatever reason, Ouspensky got very excited about this, and he taught his group something completely different, and they were clucking around like chickens. And this habit to launch off in a completely different direction is a habit of the false self, of course, especially one where you've got a fancy label and it doesn't require you to do any of the hard work that Gurdjieff made his students do. Now, the difference between the two systems, to summarize briefly, is that Gurdjieff recognized that human beings, like all of life, have a certain duty to perform, and that duty for human beings is simply to use all the functions that you have together in order to express yourself, and to not be lazy and to not just copy what you are told. He called that being part of good old duty, the duty of all of creatures of nature. Ouspensky went in a completely different direction, and he created groups that sat quietly together in a room, not moving their body, and attempting to so-called self-remember, which is a rather vague term. In fact, Gurdjieff often tried to lead such people into the idea of remembering your aim. In other words, working on something particular like painting a fence and remembering your aim continuously as you do it. So Gurdjieff once again steering people back into the physical, practical work, which Ouspensky did not like. At the end of chapter 7, exactly the same thing happens. Gurdjieff gives them a teaching which involves how the whole of the cosmos functions and how we function as a sort of microcosm of it. And Ouspensky once again launches off into lateral octaves, and his group start clucking again about lateral octaves. It's very interesting how the false self latches on to these strange sounding words. And once they've got an ology, there's no stopping them.
It's got electrolytes.
Okay, look. The plants aren't growing, so I'm pretty sure that the Brondo's not working. Now, I'm no botanist, but I do know that if you put water on plants, they grow.
Brondo's got what plants crave.
Yeah, it's got electrolytes.
What are electrolytes? Do you even know?
Because Brondo's got electrolytes.
In this scene from the American movie Idiocracy, the use of buzzwords is ridiculed. What is ridiculed is people of the body, and the people who do the ridiculing are those smart guys with lots of words in their head, who condemn more traditional people for not being smart enough to know the buzzwords. And the paradox of the mind-body dichotomy has been discussed for thousands of years. But with great generosity, truly, Gurdjieff has given us the answer to this, which is that the mind and body has to work together because one emerges from the other, or rather the mind emerges from the spirit, which emerges from the body. 1, 2, 3. Likewise, the right wing and the left wing of politics is exactly the same misunderstanding and miscommunication and lack of generosity. As Gurdjieff says, with people it always ends in them killing each other. Ouspensky's ideas of self-remembering, which include this famous diagram, are closest to Buddhist meditation methods like Vipassana. In this diagram, Ouspensky only has 2 elements, and 2 is too few to create something new, as you should know from the law of 3. In a basic Vipassana, if you are resting on a bare attention of the breath at the nostrils, there are actually 3 elements: the vital force of the breath, the sensing at the nostrils, and the action of the director, 3. And it is in the triangulation of that method that something new is born. As Francis Bacon said at the beginning, most of what we see manifested on this planet is simply a repetition of the past. It's really quite an intimidating situation, living on a planet that is like this. Gurdjieff says, "We are on the earth, and we depend entirely upon the laws that are operating on the earth. The earth is a very bad place from the cosmic point of view. It is like the most remote part of northern Siberia, very far from everywhere. It is cold, life is very hard. Everything that in another place comes by itself or is easily obtained is here acquired only by hard labour. Everything must be fought for, both in life and in the work. In life it still happens sometimes that a man gets a legacy and afterwards lives without doing anything. But such a thing does not happen in the work. All are equal and all are equally beggars." This is a passage where Gurdjieff is instructing both Ouspensky and Anna Bukowsky in the early period of his teaching. "Do you understand what I meant by the reals?" "More or less," replied Ouspensky. "And you, Anna Ilyinishna?" "I don't know if I really do." "Very bad. You must know. No one can be uncertain whether they want to eat or not. It's yes or no, and it's the same with this, so let's straighten it out together. You presume that you have a genuine I. No, you have not, because all your ideas and actions are the results of recordings on your reels. You have 33 reels. Today you say something is red, tomorrow you say the same thing is green. That is because a different I is speaking. We must learn to absorb from the outer world and give out again chiefly one impression. One which concerns our chief occupation and perhaps a few, very few sidelines. And when we meet people, we must refuse to pay too much attention to what they say, but politely or impolitely ignore them. As you might put it, let everything go in at one ear and come out at the other. Sometimes there is simply no time to ignore such things politely, for we must run after the object which is important to us if we are to catch it. One must know how to act swiftly, grasp the object and never let go, for will there ever be another opportunity? Probably never. There is also another way to succeed in our strivings and longings, less dramatic than the first way. That is to have within oneself something like a savings box, in which one puts observations and facts collected from one's life. One meets people who are interesting or useful to one's particular purpose and accumulates them in one's savings box like coins, one after another. Then one day there will be enough collected to sort it all out, make mental notes, and perhaps, here again it all depends on a man's other qualities, one may make use of it as a foundation for life. Now you, Anna, you are studying music. One cannot be always learning and listening and watching others play. One must play oneself. This you do, and even in public. But even better is your composing. Let's take an instance. Suppose one day, while you are improvising at your piano, One of your girlfriends arrives in the middle and asks you to go out with her to buy a new hat. And suppose that she too has left some job undone at home, something important like working for a final examination on which her whole life depends, perhaps even the lives of all her family as well, all thrown away after their 99th effort, all lost because, though she has done so much already, she grew tired, as if the 100th part were not of vital importance, forgetting that only the 100th part can complete the whole, like closing a circle. So then it remains unfinished, and everything, the other 99 parts as well, is wasted, the purpose, the sacrifices, time, everything. I say it again. The efforts to attain this purpose will be lost because that would have become the means of many other things as well, either dreamed of or you, Anna Ilinishna, already would have wound up on your own reels, your friend's stupidity about going out to buy the hat. Nothing good would have come of it, only more harm and waste of time. Yes, all would sink to hopeless depths. One must be loyal to the most important, most cherished object in one's life, and must never betray it. With this Gurdjieff ended, and he began to drink a fresh cup of coffee. Traditionally, parents would say this kind of thing to their children. And especially in the modern era, this kind of thing is resented. But the difference with Gurdjieff is he is expressing the truth that it must be your own object that you complete. And the resentment fades. Now, when Beelzebub was in Tibet, he saw the destruction of the culture. In this passage, Beelzebub reveals various details, both about the being Hanbled Zoin and also the life of the Kesdjan body. You need to know about two special properties of the being Hanbled Zoin, that is, the blood of the Kesdjan body. The first of these properties of the being Hanbled Zoin consists in this, that if any part of it is separated and removed from the rest, then no matter where and how far it is taken, a sort of thread-like connection is formed between this part and the principal concentration of this cosmic substance. This connection, moreover, is formed of the same substance, and its density and thickness increase or diminish in proportion to the distance between the principal concentration and this separated part. And the second special property of this Hanbled Zoin is that if a part of it is again introduced, accidentally or intentionally, into the principal concentration of this substance, no matter where this concentration may be or in what quantity the Hanbled Zoin is introduced, it blends with the Hanbled Zoin of the original concentration and is distributed uniformly throughout it, both as regards density and quantity. And so, since the Kesdjan body of the being is coated with substances that in their totality make this cosmic formation much lighter than the mass of cosmic substances composing the atmosphere surrounding the planets, the Kesdjan body is no sooner separated from the planetary body of the being than it rises according to the cosmic law called Tenekdoa, or as it is sometimes called, the law of gravity, to that sphere in which it finds the density that corresponds with its own mass, and which is thus the place corresponding to such cosmic arisings. The end comes to all people, and the talking will stop. At that point, who will leave with something, and who leaves with nothing? I will finish with something from Sidra. Ignorance does not compare to the enlightened vision. Ignorance is related to the physical perception. The great statement Sarvam Kalu Idam Brahma means all things are Brahman. Friends and foes are all Brahman. Thus good is Brahman and bad is also Brahman. All the people in the world are slaves of their circumstances. Only devotion can do away with these circumstances. Through devotion to God, knowledge is achieved. Do not be tempted by illusion. You must destroy illusion. Maya dispenses with all people with the same disregard. Only the aspirant whose spiritual practice has remained unfinished gets the human birth and human qualities again. Maya is not afraid of anyone, except one who knows Brahman. Many are the members of the cult of Maya, and very few followers belong to the path of knowledge. Maya is always keeping watch on you. Remain always on your guard. Do not lose sight of your origin, your true home. Our birth has only the aim of breaking the backbone of worldliness. Take care.
Mm-hmm.